Hello, my name is Julián Quijano, and this is Fandom-Ready. First of all, before starting, I need to point out, as you may have realized it by now, that English is not my first language, so expect some mistakes. I hope you can excuse me. If you have any question, feel free to ask it in the chat. I'm the creative director at Beautiful Glitch. We're an indie studio in sunny Barcelona in Spain. You can follow us in Instagram and Twitter. There's a handle in there. And we are the creators of Monster Prom. Monster Prom is a multiplayer narrative adventure with dating sim mechanics and party game mechanics. And it's more than a game, it's a franchise, as we have a content DLC called Second Term and a sequel we recently released called Monster Camp. And we are planning more sequels to go. But today we are talking more than just video games. We are talking about fandom. So we want to show your fandom, which is wonderful. You can see here. And not only that, we want to show you some numbers that we believe they are tied to having a fandom. Because often we hear that it's better to have a fan than just a consumer. And we agree. But we also think it is important for the purpose of this talk to show some numbers that we believe are tied in some ways to having fans and not just an audience. Stuff like a very high conversion rate on our products that goes to show the loyalty of our fans to the fiction. High average in Kickstarter campaigns that goes to show that people is very willing to pay more than just the price of the game because they are very invested in the game. And even social media, where we have more than 50,000 followers, both on Twitter and Instagram, having more than 1 million likes in Instagram in 2019. And this is not to our own horn. It's for two reasons that I'm showing you this. For once, it's just in case that you don't know Monster Prom or Beautiful Glitch. I think it's important to show you our credentials because you are here listening to a talk we are giving about fandoms and whatnot. And so I think some of these numbers and these pictures goes to show that indeed we have a fiction ourselves that has grown its own wonderful big fandom. And also it goes to show the value of a fandom, since we are spending now half an hour on what effectively is a series of tricks and advice on how to turn your fiction into fertile grounds for a fandom to grow. Because this is what this talk is about, is what over the years, thanks to Monster Prom and observation on our and other fandoms, insights we have come up with on how we believe that aside of course, crafting a great product, you can do to, let's say, increase the chances for a fandom to grow around the creation you are working in. So before going into these specific insights, I want to talk a bit about, I want to talk a bit about the process of becoming a fan. I'm sure all of us are fans of different fandoms. And so I want you to think on the process because it will be useful in here later. So we start as strangers in the sense that we know nothing about the fiction. Then we receive a first impact, right? Someone talks to us about the fiction, or we see something in somewhere, and then we go into mere consumption. We read a book, play a game, watch the episode of a TV show. Maybe we have some interest after that, and we discuss it a bit with friends, or even leave a review. Maybe even we decide to consume more of the main products, like watching more episodes of the TV show, playing more games of the franchise, reading more books of the series. And maybe our interest keeps growing. So we are not just only discussing, now we are defending the fiction, now we are even recommending it to other people. And slowly you can see how, as a consumer, you are starting to have more and more value for the creator because for once, you're of course consuming more products, but you are also even helping the creator in spreading the word and getting more consumers. And then we go into the deeper levels, which I think what comes next depends a lot on who you are as a fan. And it goes to show that there's many ways of interacting with a fandom. Maybe you go into full immersion and you absorb all the information out there about the fiction, like wikis and theories. Maybe you want to consume more products other than the main ones. So you are now not only playing games on the franchise, but you, I don't know, you bought a body pillowcase. Maybe you go into socialization, meaning that you become an active participant in social circles around the fandom and you meet new acquaintances and even friends. Maybe you want to create. And so, depending what's the craft you like, you draw fan art, write fanfics, do cosplay, make memes, craft theories, whatever speaks to you. Or maybe you do a number of things. It's whatever suits you as a fan, again. And this is a process, again, I think we all know, but I think it's interesting to now flip it and think how it goes for the creator. And for the benefit of this talk and to more easily convey the points and insights we have come up with, I would establish three different parts with three different goals. For once, as creators, we need to create an enticing first bite. Like this means to make the shallow levels of your fiction very accessible and appealing, so a stranger will feel, enticed to that first interaction with your fiction. Then you have the goal of achieving a smooth transition from buy to binge. This means that create the different levels and parts of your fiction in a way that, you get that first bite, but then before you realize, you get the second bite, the third bite, and then suddenly you are you are actually binging. And then when you are binging on the deep levels, I think there's also a goal, which is managing for people to binge from the heart. And what this means to us is that people that are on the deep levels are not just spending a lot of time, and that's it, with your fiction, but they're also starting to connect in deeper levels of values, identity, emotions, so they truly connect with your fiction. So basically, all this builds on the idea, on the notion that right now, most fictions, and I recommend yours if you can make it so it goes this way, are actually multi-layered. Multi-layered in the sense that there's many layers of consumption available and are accessible for someone that wants to go in it casually, and deep levels for the person that wants to become a fan. And I say, before checking specific tricks, that, sorry, 1 second. It's good for a creator to ask oneself if the creation has opportunities for all these multi-layer levels of consumption. This means many things. Like, for instance, some questions that you could ask yourself as the creator of a game. Are you building not only a great game, but good spaces for debate, like a Discord server? Are you... this is maybe dumb, but do you have at least one character that's very easy to cosplay, so people that's maybe not a very skilled in cosplay can still feel comfortable cosplaying one character? Are you caring for your community spaces, so your fandom is an enjoyable place to find and to meet new people that loves the same fiction than you? The theme is open for zonas, like Monster Prom has monster zonas? Is the theme you have chosen open for this kind of content? Do you have mysteries that will lead people into many theories? And of course, you don't need to fish for all of these. Each fiction is different, but I think it's useful to spend some time reflecting on if you have opportunities for this. Like, open your fiction to this type of multi-layer consumption. But enough of that. So, provided these three goals, we did come up with a number of insights, advice, tricks to manage to achieve these three goals. And we found like 8 to 10. But of course, because we have only 30 minutes today, we will focus on one trick or one insight per level. Let's start with the first one, which is getting that first bite. So this is ways to get a stranger to have a first interaction with your fandom. We found three potential ways of maximizing the chances of this happening, which are exploring theme trends, offering a big first choice, a first big choice, or having a high pitch. And now we are focusing on the second one, offering a first big choice. So this idea is based on an old marketing trick, or at least that's how I learned about that when I was studying advertising. And sorry, it's based on the idea of when you're creating something and you want to market it to an audience, it's very important to frame the perception of that audience. This is easier understood if we put an example. Let's say that we are now trying to sell soda instead of making a game or creating whatever. So you can ask people, do you want to drink soda? Yes or no? But the thing is, 50% of those options are not of our interest. We don't want people choosing, I don't want to drink soda. So the idea is to override that question and go into a different question, that first big choice, that kind of throws people into already thinking in terms of drinking the soda. For instance, it would be like, which soda speaks to you? Sweet strawberry soda, exotic papaya soda, or super cool blue flavor, whatever that is. And you can see the idea is to override the drink soda yes no and get people just wondering, okay, which one I would drink. That this is not like a magic trick that will everyone drinking soda, but it has an effect. It's let's say it helps you to make your audience people to go past that first wall of disinterest and actually check what this soda is about. And this, which feels very specific and soda-centric right now, and basically means, it's basically present in many fictions too. Like, for instance, to think on some popular ones is like Harry Potter, which instead of telling you, do you like Harry Potter, yes or no, do you want to read it? It directly says, in which house would you be? Slytherin, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, or Hufflepuff? And again, instead of thinking, I am interested in Harry Potter, or even if you know you are not interested, you feel a bit enticed to check which one is yours, right? Or even with video games. Like, I myself haven't never played Fire Emblem, nor I have an interest in it. I'm sorry, not sorry, but to each their own, I think they say in English. And the thing is, recently they released Three Houses, which was very popular. And it did the same thing, basically also with houses. And it actually worked, because instead of saying pass, I don't want to play any Fire Emblem, or I don't want even to check what Fire Emblem is about, they got me checking the houses because I wanted to know which houses I would choose. And again, no magic trick. I didn't end up playing Fire Emblem, but it's the first time in my life that I actually care enough to check about the game. And that's a huge first step that we are trying to achieve as creators. So the power of a first big choice. Give me 1 second. I will sum it up this way, which is human beings are often human beings tend to organize information in categories and groups because that makes the information more easily digestible. And so this creates shortcuts and make easier to understand complex structures, like the fiction you are trying to sell, for instance. And so we are also like appealed and attracted to these kind of informational categories. We are like, when we see them, we want to decode them, right? So there's a power in that. In Monster Prom, there's no houses or teams, but we have the characters. You need to choose between 6 love interests. And so we did this into a lesser degree, but the 6 characters have clear school tropes, they have clear monster types, and they're even -1 are super clearly coded with colors that are very present in the character design. So you have the red demon who's a bad boy, the green gorgon who's a mean girl, the blue ghost who's a party animal, or the purple vampire who's a hipster. And so now that we have understood this, the next question would be like, can this become more powerful? And I think yes, with what I call sexy themes. And this is a funny way of saying universal and recognizable categories or symbols. And as we can see here, one example, there's like Zodiac. Just if you are like wondering, this Zodiac thirst is nothing about this talk specifically, but just as an example, so I can show you that we are not only sharing this information, but we apply it ourselves. This is like some concept we have been toying around the idea of a sexy thing, which is zodiac signs, and I will show you some concepts. While I'm explaining this. So these sexy themes are stuff like zodiac signs, but also elements, planets, deadly scenes, major arcana. You can think of probably of many universal categories that people easily recognize. And you can also think on many fictions that use that, like Sailor Moon with the planets, Homestuck and Saint Seiya with the zodiac signs, Avatar with the elements. And again, it has the power of this first big choice, but also is so freaking recognizable and universal. And even sometimes people have one of these symbols assigned, or they previously chose which one they really like, that you can even go further into overriding the first disinterest, that people maybe even want to check theirs. Like, I'm a Capricorn, and then I tend to check the Capricorn characters when the characters are coded with the zodiac signs. It's again the power of this first big choice. But it's not only about offering a first big choice or using universal and recognizable themes that work as categories, but also you need to, of course, translate these universal categories, symbols, etc., into something that feels yours, part of your fiction. And again, of course, this is not something that you need to do, but these are like advice, insights. And I would say that it's worth checking if this makes sense with your fiction. But if so, I think it helps. So, yeah, making it yours. The goal here, I think, is when you create these categories, this first big choice, it's good if the options have distinctive visual distinction and a clarity of tropes. You need to make the choice very distinct from each other, so people feel even more pushed, like subconsciously, into choosing one that speaks to them. Because in the end, it's a lot. Sorry, it's a lot about that, about our tendency to seek a sense of belonging, even if it means belonging to one group, house, category, character in a fiction, and our sense of identity, and how we are continuously defining ourselves and looking for ways of defining ourselves. And so we carry these symbols, for instance, in a way that has some strange and intriguing power. Like again, the zodiac signs. I myself, I'm a Capricorn, and I don't believe in astrology, but I carry the sign in a strange way because it's a sign that was assigned to me at birth, and I had built some connection. And so there's at least an intriguing power to that, and I think fictions can benefit from using it. So to sum it up, sexy themes are universal and recognizable. They appeal to a sense of identity and the need to define oneself, and they throw a complete stranger into checking the fiction and doing a whole dive within it. It's building yummy choices that lead into a strong sense of belonging and identity. And again, overriding that first part, getting that first bite. Yeah. So let's move on to the next part. The immersion. So the smooth transition from bite to binge. And these are insights on many degrees of depth from the bite to the binge. For instance, like twisting the trope is something that, in my opinion, is closer to the bite. And the one we are checking now, which is the power of the relatable, is closer to the binge. What's that about? Let's think for a moment on a TV show. It's Space Bounty Hunters, right? You have the first episode, and it starts with a brawl, so you can see all of these characters like straight into cool fighting. It's selling the action of the TV show, and that's all cool. But I think it's even cooler when a TV show does something different, like you rewind some minutes, and the actual show starts with them a bit before that. So you have them ordering food at a intergalactic pool for dinner, puff, restaurant, whatever, or dinner. And so you can see them like what they order, how they eat, what they drink, or even them having a menial conversation about anything. And I believe there's a power in that. Actually, this that I am describing is very similar to the first scene of Reservoir Dogs, where you have fantastic characters in the sense that they're not your everyman, but criminals in this case. And you have them eating at a dinner and discussing about, if I remember correctly, the tipping system in the United States. And it was a great choice, I think, because it painted you the characters in a very clear way, but also in a way that was relatable in the sense that they were doing something that even if they were criminals or space pirates, as they will be in this TV show, they still felt close. And there's a power on making stuff relatable. I think it's obvious on how it grounds your fiction in what can be recognized and seen as something close to us. So I think there's a value in mixing the fantastic and the mundane. The fantastic is also good. Like, of course, you can create something that's completely mundane and that's completely fine, but many fictions benefit, I think, from having fantastic setups. Some people ask us, like, why Monster Prom are monsters? Because they're like comedic exaggerations of myself and my friends when we were on our 20s. Most of the characters, not Miranda, I don't know any person like Miranda. Luckily, I guess. But the thing is, we chose to make them monsters for no good reason other than monsters are cool and they're popular. And so, yeah, there's value in a fantastic setup. And nothing against Miranda, but at least as a real person, I think it's at least one I would want to be close to. The character is funny. But so we know that there's value in the fantastic, but also it's good to space the mundane need. People want to see this fantastic hero. No matter how epic your story is, people connect with and care for what's humane, for what's relatable. And so I think you need to put that into your fiction no matter what. And another good example we talked before, and I think it talks about another value of this, is Harry Potter again. Because many people, even if they didn't care that much about Harry Potter, and the ones that care, of course, did, has wondered, what if I was in Hogwarts, right? Because Hogwarts, aside of being a magic school, was a school, and that's something we can relate to. And that let us do something very important for a fiction to make people do, which is projection. I think it's very good that your fiction manages to make the audience project themselves into the fiction's world. And that's thanks to having, details, parts of the fiction, or a big part that's mundane. That's something that we can relate to. So you want your fiction to be enough fantastic, so you want to imagine yourself in there, but enough mundane, so you can imagine yourself in there, right? There's a couple easy challenges, tricks that can like help you brainstorm ideas for this. It doesn't need to be your next game or creation, but at least something you can brainstorm for 1-2 hours to practice this, mixing the mundane with the fantastic, and is working on a very popular formula, which is mixing a fantastic thing with a mundane setup. And the most popular one that we have seen to exhaustion sorry, is a school for whatever fantastic. We have Harry Potter and the Magicians, schools for wizards. We have My Hero Academia, school for superheroes. We have the Daily Class, school for assassins, and we can go on. So I challenge yourself. Spend 1 hour brainstorming an idea that's, for instance, something that changed the something fantastic. A school for, I don't know, let's say for deities. So you can make it, the school is for a specific pantheon, like Greek gods, or many pantheons, and every click in the school is a different pantheon. Or maybe a different type of deities, like eldritch deities, and you get a way weirder fiction. Or maybe you can do the opposite, and I challenge you to change the mundane setup. And you have, for instance, a company that's like gray, boring offices, but what they do is creating new worlds. Like, they are like creators of worlds, but in a gray office. Or you have a law office for superheroes and all the law issues they have. But it's not about the superheroes, it's about the lawyers, the fiction. Or you have a PR agency for gods that are trying to get a bigger following, and you follow the work in the PR agency. Try to do it. Try to brainstorm this for 1 hour or two. So next, let's go into the last part, the true depths. So this is again about building true connection with your audience, with your fans, on values, on emotions, on identity. And we have found two things that you can care of around this, which is voices and values and ship dynamics. And I'm guessing that in the chat people will be asking for ship dynamics, maybe, but it's the other one. It's voice and values. That's what we're checking today. So for the voices, it's very simple. It's about, you need to flesh your characters out. This is so obvious, and yet I fail to see it in many fictions I consume, like really fleshing the characters out and following all the steps to make them feel real as a main goal. We will check some of the steps we follow in Monster Prom. Some are tied to insights we haven't seen today, but they're pretty self-explanatory. For instance, tropes, like we identified and chose recognizable tropes for our characters, monster types, which are tropes on themselves, school tropes, and don't try to reinvent the wheel. Of course, you will disrupt these tropes a bit, but you also want to keep stuff, so these are the pillars for your characters. You want to find themes, like semantic territories that you will use for the characters' narratives. You want to build some depth. You want to spend some time asking the right questions. What's the upbringing of the characters? Who are their family? What's their backstories? Why they are the way they are? Let's not just make them one way, but let's try to understand how they come to be that way. And details. This seems more like non-important, but it is, because we are built not only in our big, deep stories, but also in our little details. And this build a rapport with the audience, and also give the characters a lot of texture, which is super good. So think of little details, spend some time, and I sometimes fail to see this on characters on popular fictions, spend some time creating details that give texture to the characters. And finally, values, which is very important too, because we all have values, and if your characters need to feel real, they should have to, like the specific ways in which they understand the world that surrounds them, right? And the main goal, I think, is to get a variety of voices that feel real and unique and different, that help people to project and to identify with. And I want to speak for a minute on the idea of telling this showing this variety of voices and telling these diverse stories. And sometimes people worry because they think that telling diverse stories is a bit too specific and it can be niche. And I don't think so. Because, yes, of course, some of these stories may feel niche, but there's two things to keep in mind. For once, no matter how niche or specific a story is, I think there's still dashes of the universal. In many specific stories, there's values and situations and experiences we can all understand and relate to, like the finding our own truth or getting our voice heard, And so you can build specific stories looking into also into the universal details that can help other people to relate with those stories. And also, of course, there will be still parts of the specific experience of a character that maybe people can't relate to that easily, but there's no issue with that. I think there's a richness in listening to stories that are far from ours and learning from experiences that diverge from ours. And there's risk to that? I don't think so. If we can connect with the story of a space pirate, and I can assure you, my experience is far from being a space pirate, I can probably connect with other many stories. So be calm, don't worry. I think there's no risk in telling these diverse stories. So here we are again. Now, to sum up, is cakes, bites, binges, and all in between. This is a different metaphor, the idea of doing like focus on the first splash, ways to draw attention powerfully, focus on the dive, and the ways to invite to go people deeper, focus on the true depth, on how to connect on deeper levels of emotions, values, and identity. We have seen some examples, and that leads us to the conclusions. And I would love to tell you that I found like a super cool conclusive sentence, like all those cool talks that say something and you say like, whoa, that's super like a big truth. But I didn't find anything like that. And I'm sorry, and I hope you can excuse me. And I said, even if it's not so cool and short, that the main idea here is that you need to understand there's value in having not just an audience, but a fandom. So build your creations with the concept of fan consumption in mind, making them multi-layer and caring for every layer in it. Draw people's attention, hook them deeper, and keep them in love. Thanks.